No tools, no blueprints, just spiraling stone tunnels that still work. They built spiral portals into the earth without maps, without records. And yet, water still flows. What knowledge did they bury beneath the desert? In the arid heart of southern Peru, where the land yields little and rain is but a rare visitor, lies a system of ancient tunnels that continues to puzzle engineers and historians alike. The Puquios of Nazca. Built over 1,000 years ago by the Nazca civilization, these spiral-shaped aqueducts were not just marvels of survival, but of innovation. Dozens of them dot the harsh desert landscape, some winding downward like stone whirlpools into the earth. Their purpose? To tap into underground water sources and channel them across miles of dry terrain, sustaining crops, animals, and entire communities in one of the driest places on Earth. Constructed without modern tools or concrete, the Puquios have endured earthquakes, erosion, and centuries of use. Their stone-lined tunnels still carry water today, a silent testament to a civilization's deep understanding of hydrology and geology. Some believe they worked by creating air currents that helped push water upward. Others suggest a more conventional gravity-fed design enhanced by natural pressure systems. But perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how they work. It's how the Nazca knew where to build them. No written records remain. No blueprints. Just spiraling portals to a forgotten science, etched into the earth. And as the desert wind passes over these ancient channels, the question lingers. What other knowledge has vanished with the sands of time? Beneath the sun-scorched landscapes of ancient Persia, a vast and invisible network once flowed silently, sustaining cities, orchards, and empires. These were the khanats, an underground irrigation system so advanced, its principles are still used today. Dating back over 3,000 years, the Persian khanat was a masterpiece of both engineering and endurance. Imagine a gently sloping tunnel, carved into dry mountainsides, reaching deep into aquifers hidden beneath the earth. From there, water would travel for miles, shielded from evaporation by the desert sun, before emerging at distant villages and farmlands. Vertical shafts, spaced at regular intervals, marked the khanat's path across the desert, acting as air vents and access points for maintenance. This delicate gradient, often just 1 or 2 degrees, was calculated with astonishing precision, without modern tools, maps, or surveying equipment. And yet, some khanats stretched for over 70 kilometers, delivering a steady, year-round flow of water. The system did more than irrigate fields, it shaped entire civilizations. Cities like Yazd thrived in otherwise inhospitable environments, sustained by this subterranean lifeline. Even today, many of Iran's oldest settlements owe their survival to these ancient veins. But how did such precise engineering knowledge emerge so early and spread so widely across continents? The khanats still run, deep beneath our feet, whispering secrets of a civilization that learned to harness the desert without ever disturbing its silence. High in the sacred valley of the Andes, carved into a vast natural depression, lies a series of circular terraces that descend like an ancient amphitheater into the earth. This is Moray, a site that defies simple explanation and hints at an advanced understanding of agriculture, climate, and perhaps even experimentation. Built by the Inca, these concentric terraces are not merely for farming. Each descending level creates a distinct microclimate, with temperature differences of up to 15 degrees Celsius from top to bottom. At first glance, it appears decorative, even ceremonial. But beneath the beauty lies function. Archaeologists believe Moray may have been an agricultural laboratory. Here, the Inca could have tested how different crops responded to various altitudes, temperatures, and soil types. Each terrace mimicked a different ecological zone found across the vast Incan Empire, from coastal plains to high mountain slopes. In one location, they could simulate an entire continent's worth of conditions. The stone walls retain heat during the day and release it at night, moderating extreme cold. Sophisticated irrigation channels run between the levels, feeding water without flooding. It is precision, embedded in stone. Yet questions remain. Why this location? What plants were truly cultivated here? And how did Inca engineers develop such refined agricultural science, without writing or modern instruments? Moray stands not as ruins, but as a riddle, a living testament to a civilization that listened to the land, and may have known far more about it than we do today. Carved into the steep mountainsides of the northern Philippines, like stairways ascending toward the clouds, the Bano rice terraces have stood for over 2,000 years, sculpted not with machines, but with bare hands, stone tools, and ancestral knowledge passed through generations. Built by the Ifugao people long before modern engineering emerged in Southeast Asia, these terraces transformed a rugged, vertical landscape into a living, breathing system of food production. Rising over 1,500 meters above sea level, they contour the mountains with mathematical precision, capturing rainwater and spring flows into a vast, interconnected web of irrigation channels. Each terrace is edged with stone or mud walls, carefully maintained to prevent erosion and ensure water flow. The slopes are so steep that no machinery can reach them. Planting and harvesting are still done entirely by hand. And yet, the rice produced here sustained entire communities, season after season. What makes Bano extraordinary isn't just its age or size. It's the harmony. The Ifugao did not conquer the land. They adapted to it. They engineered sustainability in a time when the word didn't exist. But in recent decades, migration and modernization have left some terraces abandoned, threatening their fragile balance. Still, when the morning mist lifts over the emerald steppes, the terraces seem to breathe, whispering stories of a people who shaped mountains not for conquest, but for survival. And one must wonder, what ancient intuition guided their hands so perfectly? Without blueprints, without borders, only belief in the land beneath their feet. In the cradle of civilization, where the Tigris and Euphrates once nourished the fields of ancient Mesopotamia, lies a silent but profound testament to humanity's agricultural awakening, the Sumerian plow inscriptions. Carved into clay tablets over 4,000 years ago, these inscriptions are more than records. They are blueprints of progress. The Sumerians, among the world's first city builders, understood that food was the foundation of empire. And at the center of this transformation stood a simple yet revolutionary tool, the plow. These texts, written in cuneiform script, describe the construction, use, and even the religious significance of the plow. Some tablets list different parts, the handle, the blade, the yoke, while others detail how oxen were harnessed and guided through the fertile fields. Incredibly, one tablet even offers instructions on how to plow straight furrows, the earliest known agricultural manual. But it wasn't just a farming tool. The plow held divine meaning. Deities like Ninurta, god of agriculture and war, were often linked to its use. To plow was not merely to work the land, it was to participate in the divine order of creation. And yet, so many questions remain. Were these tablets used to train scribes, farmers, or did they serve ritual purposes lost to time? Today, the clay has hardened, the fields have dried, but the words endure. Echoes of a people who turned earth with purpose, and in doing so, wrote the first lines of humanity's agricultural story. High in the mist-shrouded Andes of Peru, nestled within the shadow of forgotten peaks, lies a lesser-known marvel of Inca engineering, the Saksak-Wakra hydraulic fields. Though less famous than Machu Picchu or Moray, these terraced wetlands tell a story just as extraordinary, written not in stone monuments, but in flowing water. Saksak-Wakra, meaning hawk's horn in Quechua, is a complex network of stepped fields, canals, and stone-lined reservoirs. Built into steep slopes, the site transforms mountain runoff into a carefully managed agricultural system. Rainwater and spring flows are captured, filtered, and distributed with remarkable efficiency, ensuring a steady water supply even during the dry season. Unlike typical Inca terraces designed solely for crops, these fields function as seasonal wetlands, where water is not just channeled, but stored and balanced. Recent studies suggest that Saksak-Wakra may have been used to cultivate water-loving plants, or to regulate water tables and prevent erosion in surrounding valleys. What makes the site so compelling is its subtlety. There are no grand walls or royal chambers. only quiet innovation etched into the mountainside. The stonework is precise, the slopes calculated, and the water, always moving, is treated with a reverence that hints at ritual as much as utility. But who maintained this balance? How was the knowledge passed down? And what other systems lie buried beneath centuries of soil and silence? At Saksak Wakra, the land doesn't just grow crops. It remembers. In the vast deserts of ancient Arabia, where rainfall was rare and rivers non-existent, the Nabateans carved out a secret, one not of stone, but of water. Long before Petra dazzled the world with its carved facades, the Nabateans mastered something even more vital, the art of floodwater farming. Far from being passive desert dwellers, these people engineered the land itself. They studied the seasonal flash floods, rare, violent surges that tore through dry wadis, and transformed them into life-giving streams. Through a network of channels, catchment basins, terraces, and underground cisterns, they slowed the floods, guided them, and stored their bounty. This was not simple irrigation. It was control over chaos. The Nabateans built diversion walls to prevent erosion, sloped their fields to manage runoff, and even developed methods to filter and cool the water underground. With no rivers to rely on, they turned the desert's rage into agriculture, growing wheat, barley, figs, and olives in places where survival seemed impossible. What remains today are subtle traces, dry stone walls, crumbling canals, and the faint outlines of terraced fields etched into hillsides long forgotten. But how did a civilization with no written engineering manuals achieve such precision? And how much of their knowledge was lost when the desert reclaimed the land? In the silence of the southern Levant, the Nabatean farms remain, whispering of a people who read the sky, shaped the flood, and sowed life in the driest of places. Beneath the palatial ruins of Knossos and Phaistos, hidden in the hills of ancient Crete, lies a system so advanced that it rivals modern infrastructure: the aqueducts and drainage networks of the Minoan civilization. Over 3,500 years ago, the Minoans, one of Europe's earliest complex societies, engineered a water management system that defied the limitations of their time. From mountain springs, they channeled fresh water to cities using clay pipes and carefully graded stone conduits. These aqueducts brought clean, pressurized water to homes, fountains, and even flushing toilets, centuries before the Roman Empire would achieve similar feats. But perhaps even more impressive was their attention to drainage. The palaces were built with multi-level sewer systems, designed to remove stormwater and waste through a combination of gravity and clever design. Some pipes featured interlocking joints and tight seals to prevent leakage, a level of precision rarely seen in Bronze Age construction. This wasn't just utility, it was urban planning rooted in balance with the environment. The Minoans didn't overpower nature. They worked with it, anticipating the risks of flooding and preserving their fresh water sources with care. And yet, how did a civilization without iron tools or written plumbing records master such techniques? The ruins remain, dry and silent, but under their foundations flows a forgotten legacy, one where water was not merely managed. It was respected, revered, and ingeniously tamed. Beneath the scorched earth of the Turpan Depression, one of the hottest and driest places in China, flows an invisible lifeline. Hidden underground, stretching for thousands of kilometers, lies a web of ancient canals known as the Carve system, a marvel of silent engineering built to defy the desert. Developed over 2,000 years ago, the Carve system gathers water from melting snow and underground springs in the distant Tian Shan Mountains. But instead of exposing it to the sun's blistering heat, the water is channeled beneath the ground, through gently sloping tunnels that carry it across vast distances without pumps or pressure. Vertical shafts, dug at regular intervals, allow for ventilation, maintenance, and precise construction. The slope is slight, just enough for gravity to guide the flow, and yet, these canals stretch for kilometers, nourishing Turpan's vineyards, orchards, and settlements. What makes the Carve extraordinary is not only its scale but its sustainability. It minimizes evaporation, conserves energy, and leaves barely a trace above ground, a testament to long-term thinking in a harsh environment. How were these gradients calculated without modern instruments? How did ancient builders align tunnels over such distances with only basic tools? The surface of Turpan may be dry and unyielding, but beneath it, a forgotten river still runs, carved by hands that understood both the land and its limits. Along the fertile banks of the Nile, where agriculture first bloomed under the African sun, an elegant device quietly transformed how water met the land, the shaduf. At first glance, it is simple. A long wooden beam balanced on a pivot, with a counterweight on one end and a bucket on the other. But this seemingly modest invention marked a turning point in ancient hydraulic engineering. Used as early as 2000 BCE, the shaduf allowed Egyptian farmers to raise water from the Nile onto higher ground, irrigating fields far beyond the river's natural reach. With a single rhythmic motion, one person could lift gallons of water using only gravity and balance. But over generations, the Egyptians didn't just use the shaduf, they optimized it. They adjusted the lengths of the beam for maximum leverage. They refined counterweight materials for smoother motion. In some regions, multiple shadufs were placed in sequence, forming tiered water lifting systems capable of raising water across significant vertical heights. The result? A continuous, low-energy method of irrigation, perfectly suited to the Nile's seasonal rhythms. The shaduf didn't rely on wheels, pulleys, or metal. Its genius was in its simplicity, refined through observation, experience, and need. But how did such an elegant system spread across civilizations, from Egypt to Mesopotamia to India? Even today, in parts of rural Africa and Asia, the shaduf endures, a quiet echo of a civilization that saw the river not as a barrier, but as a partner in survival. Among the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon remain the most elusive. Said to have towered with cascading greenery in the heart of Mesopotamia, their very existence is still debated. But even more intriguing than the gardens themselves is the mystery of how they were watered. In the dry, sun-baked plains of ancient Babylon, where rain was rare and the Euphrates ran low in summer, such lush, terrace gardens would have demanded a constant and reliable source of water. Yet ancient texts make no mention of aqueducts, nor do ruins reveal clear irrigation channels. Still, classical sources like Strabo and Diodorus describe massive, elevated gardens teeming with trees, flowers, and vines. How, then, did water reach the highest terraces? One prevailing theory speaks of an early form of the Archimedean screw, a spiral pump capable of raising water uphill, centuries before Archimedes himself. Others suggest a system of chain-operated water wheels or pulleys driven by manpower, drawing water from the Euphrates up through hidden shafts and reservoirs. No physical remains of these systems have ever been found, and some scholars believe the gardens may have existed not in Babylon, but hundreds of miles away in Nineveh, part of an Assyrian royal complex. The Hanging Gardens may or may not have bloomed as legend says, but the very idea that ancient engineers could lift rivers into the sky continues to challenge our understanding of what was possible and what might still be buried beneath the sands. In the sun-scorched Sonoran Desert of present-day Arizona, where rainfall is scarce and rivers vanish into sand, an ancient civilization once flourished, not by chance, but by design. The Hohokam, a people often overshadowed by their Mesoamerican neighbors, engineered one of the most extensive and sophisticated canal systems in pre-Columbian North America. Dating back over 1,500 years, the Hohokam canals stretched for hundreds of kilometers, channeling water from the Salt and Gila rivers across the desert to irrigate vast fields of corn, beans, squash, and cotton. These canals weren't shallow ditches. They were carefully graded, with subtle slopes that allowed water to flow steadily without eroding the channel walls. Some canals reached up to 20 meters wide and 4 meters deep, evidence of both large-scale labor and advanced understanding of hydraulics. Settlements grew alongside these canals, forming a desert civilization sustained by water, planning, and cooperation. The Hohokam built with wooden digging tools and stone implements, yet their alignment and engineering rival modern efforts. They managed water in a land that barely offered any, balancing flow, soil retention, and crop rotation with precision. Why the system eventually declined remains unclear. Climate change, overuse, or social upheaval. The channels run dry, but the questions remain. Even today, modern irrigation canals in Phoenix follow the paths first carved by Hohokam hands. In the desert dust, their legacy lingers, a silent network that once turned barren land into an oasis of life. Amid the shallow lakes of the Valley of Mexico, where the city of Tenochtitlan once rose from the water, the Aztecs built floating fields that fed an empire. These were the chinampas, often called floating gardens. Though they were anything but adrift, constructed with remarkable ingenuity, chinampas began with a simple frame, long stakes driven into the lakebed, forming rectangular outlines. These were then filled with layers of mud, lake sediment, decaying vegetation, and woven reeds, a natural compost that anchored the platform while enriching the soil. Over time, the structure settled into a stable, fertile island, its edges reinforced with willow trees whose roots bound the banks together. Each chinampa measured roughly 30 meters long and 2 to 4 meters wide, separated by narrow canals navigable by canoe. Water seeped into the beds from below, creating a self-irrigating system that allowed for multiple harvests a year. Maize, beans, chili, and flowers grew in abundance. But this was no simple gardening technique. It was engineered agriculture, scaled to support tens of thousands in a lake-bound metropolis. Some chinampas were even linked directly to the city via causeways and aqueducts, forming an intricate web of water and sustenance. And yet, how did the Aztecs maintain such balance between land and lake, without polluting or collapsing the fragile ecosystem? Today, fragments of chinampas still survive in Xochimilco. But the quiet waters that once mirrored a city of islands now reflect a deeper question. What more did the Aztecs know about living with water, rather than against it? In the harsh deserts of southern Jordan, where rain is fleeting and the soil cracks under the sun, ancient farmers once coaxed life from dust. Long before modern irrigation, these early inhabitants, Nabateans, Edomites, and even Neolithic communities, developed sustainable methods of desert farming that defied their environment. At first glance, the landscape appears barren, but scattered across it are remnants of stone walls, terraces, and subtle channels, part of a vast, passive water harvesting system. These structures weren't designed to find water, but to wait for it. Flash floods and seasonal rains were captured and directed into holding basins, where they slowly soaked the earth. Cisterns, some cut deep into bedrock, stored precious water for dry months. Soil was enriched using ash, manure, and crushed rock. Crops like barley, figs, dates, and even grapes were grown in sunken plots protected from wind and evaporation. Terraced hillsides reduced erosion and allowed farmers to maximize every drop of moisture. This wasn't survival, it was strategy. Ancient Jordanian farmers read the land like a book, observing slopes, wind direction, and rainfall patterns, then shaping their agriculture to match. But how was this knowledge developed and passed down in such isolated, unforgiving terrain? Today, the desert holds their secrets, weathered stone by stone. And as the modern world faces increasing water scarcity, the memory of those who farmed without rivers may hold answers we've forgotten. Beneath the scorching sun of the Libyan Sahara, where dunes stretch endlessly and rain is but a memory, an ancient network lies hidden below the surface, the Fagaras. Ingeniously simple yet technically complex, these underground water channels sustained life in one of the harshest climates on Earth. The Fagaras, also known as khanats in Persia or Khares in Central Asia, were developed by desert communities such as the Garamantes, a powerful Berber civilization that flourished in southern Libya over 2,000 years ago. In a land with no rivers and only brief seasonal rains, they turned to the invisible, underground aquifers. Digging narrow, gently sloped tunnels from the base of mountains to distant fields, they tapped into natural water tables. Vertical shafts were bored at intervals to allow workers access and ventilation. The water, shielded from evaporation, flowed by gravity across kilometers of desert, emerging at oases and agricultural plots in the Fezzan region. These fagras were not just survival tools. They enabled cities to thrive, trade to flourish, and green fields to grow in seas of sand. But the labor to build and maintain them was immense, requiring knowledge of geology, engineering, and patience passed through generations. What's most remarkable is their longevity. Many fagras still function today, though many lie abandoned, silenced by modern wells and pumps. Yet as aquifers shrink and climate extremes grow, one must ask, in turning away from ancient wisdom, have we lost something far more precious than water? In the arid highlands of ancient Yemen, where mountains rise sharply and rain falls only in fleeting bursts, the Sabaean civilization achieved something extraordinary. They didn't just survive the desert, they mastered it. At the heart of this mastery stood one of the greatest engineering achievements of the ancient world, the Marib Dam, built over 2,800 years ago by the Sabaeans. A prosperous kingdom known for its incense trade and stone inscriptions, the Marib Dam harnessed the seasonal rains that rushed down from the highlands. Stretching over 600 meters in length, with stone-reinforced embankments and precisely engineered spillways, the dam captured monsoon floodwaters and directed them through a network of canals to irrigate thousands of acres of farmland. This wasn't just flood control, it was agricultural regulation. Water was rationed, scheduled, and delivered through sluice gates and channels, turning the desert into a patchwork of fertile fields. The dam supported orchards, date palms, and grains, feeding cities and powering an economy built on both trade and technology. The Sabaeans maintained the dam for over 1,000 years, repairing, upgrading, and adapting it with each generation. But around the 6th century CE, a final breach led to its collapse, and the decline of the civilization it sustained. What remains today are towering ruins and dry channels, a silent monument to a people who tamed the rains and built a kingdom on water. And one can't help but wonder, was their true wealth not incense or gold, but the wisdom to move with the rhythm of the earth itself? In the rugged hills and plateaus of southern India, where stone meets soil and monsoon rains arrive with fierce intensity, ancient engineers in Tamil Nadu carved a legacy, not into monuments, but into the living rock. This is the story of rock-cut irrigation, a quiet marvel of early South Indian hydrology. Dating back over 2,000 years, these systems were developed by early Tamil kingdoms, most notably the Cholas and Pandyas, who understood that water was not just a seasonal gift, but a resource to be managed with foresight. Using iron tools and an intimate knowledge of the terrain, they chiseled channels, sluices, and storage tanks directly into granite outcrops. Natural depressions in the rock were deepened to form Kudamaramuthu tanks, designed to store rainwater for months. Narrow-cut canals guided excess flow from higher elevations to agricultural lands below, while overflow drains protected villages from flash floods. In some places, inscriptions in ancient Tamil script still mark maintenance schedules, evidence of a civil system built on community and continuity. These rock-cut reservoirs were not isolated. They were part of vast, interconnected networks, each tank feeding another, balancing water supply across seasons and settlements. Even in drought-prone regions, rice fields and coconut groves thrived. But how did ancient communities coordinate such vast hydrological planning without maps, pumps, or central bureaucracy? Today, many of these systems still function, weathered but enduring, a testament to a civilization that carved water from stone and whose legacy still flows in quiet channels beneath Tamil Nadu's sunlit hills. More than 4,000 years ago, in the fertile plains of the Indus Valley, a civilization rose that would rival its contemporaries in Egypt and Mesopotamia. But unlike others who left behind towering monuments, the Harappans built something quieter, yet far more advanced, a city-wide drainage grid system. Excavations at sites like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro have revealed an urban layout of astonishing precision. Streets were laid out in perfect grids, intersecting at right angles. Along these streets ran covered drains, brick-lined, sloped, and systematically connected to larger sewers. Every home, from modest quarters to elite residences, had access to a private bathroom or latrine connected directly to this network. The drains featured inspection holes for maintenance, sump pits to trap solids, and standardized bricks that ensured structural uniformity. Rainwater and wastewater were kept separate, a level of urban planning not seen again for millennia. And yet, no royal palace has been found. No grand temple. Just sanitation, symmetry, and systems, suggesting a society more focused on civic welfare than centralized power. How did the Harappans achieve such consistency across cities separated by hundreds of kilometers? What tools guided their alignments, and what philosophy underpinned their engineering choices? The answers remain elusive. Their script remains undeciphered, their rise and fall still a mystery. But beneath layers of earth and time, the drains still run. Dry now, but echoing with the logic of a civilization that saw cleanliness, order, and water management not as luxuries, but as foundations of life. Deep within the lush, tangled heart of the Amazon, a quiet mystery lies buried beneath the forest floor, a soil unlike any other. Known as terra preta, or dark earth, this rich, fertile layer stretches across vast patches of the basin, defying the region's naturally poor, acidic soils. But this isn't a natural phenomenon. It's a human legacy. Formed over centuries by pre-Columbian Amazonian societies, terra preta is the product of intentional, long-term soil enrichment. Layers of charcoal, bone, broken pottery, plant waste, and human refuse were mixed into the earth, creating a dark, nutrient-rich substrate that regenerates itself and supports intensive agriculture. What's remarkable is its durability. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of years after its creation, terra preta still outperforms surrounding soils, supporting lush growth in places where crops would otherwise struggle. It's as if ancient hands engineered a living soil, one that could feed cities hidden beneath the canopy. But who were these people? The jungle yields few ruins, and conventional wisdom once held that the Amazon could not support large-scale societies. Terra preta tells a different story of villages, trade routes, and planned landscapes long before European contact. How did indigenous engineers understand the microbiology of soil so well? Was it trial and error, or a knowledge system we've barely begun to comprehend? Today, scientists study terra preta not just as archaeology, but as a solution, a blueprint for sustainable farming in a warming world. In the Amazon's deepest roots, perhaps the future of agriculture lies in the ashes of the past. On the verdant slopes of Bali's volcanic heartland, where rice paddies ripple like green waves across the landscape, an ancient system continues to shape both the land and the lives upon it. This is Subak, a water management philosophy as much as it is an irrigation system. Dating back to the 9th century, Subak is a cooperative network that distributes water from mountain springs and rivers to terraced rice fields, using gravity-fed canals, tunnels, and bamboo aqueducts. But it is not merely engineering, it is ecosystem and spirituality in harmony. At the center of Subak is Tri-Hita Karana, the Balinese principle of balance between humans, nature, and the divine. Every Subak network is anchored by a water temple, where priests oversee not only the flow of water, but the sacred rituals tied to planting, harvesting, and celestial cycles. Each farmer is part of a local Subak cooperative, which decides collectively how water is allocated, ensuring fair access regardless of wealth or status. It is democracy, ecology, and religion woven into a living landscape. What's extraordinary is its resilience. For over 1,000 years, this decentralized system has supported high-yield rice farming on a densely populated island, without degrading soil or depleting resources. How did ancient Balinese communities devise such a self-regulating system, long before formal governments or global sustainability goals? Even as modern pressures encroach, the Subak endures, not as a relic, but as a living reminder that water, culture, and community can flow as one.